So this right here, a clip that I'm about to show you from the NFL's social media team, is history. This is the 49ers defensive tackle now. This is before he became a 49er. It's Grayson Halton, drafted out of Oklahoma, going 36.5 inches at the combine on a vertical leap. Yay! He absolutely levitated. Look, we could even pause it right there. That is a 300-pounder. A 300-pounder, I think officially 293 at the combine at his pro day. He weighed in at 300, levitating 36.5 inches into the air. It is the third highest vertical jump at the NFL combine for a defensive tackle ever. And the 49ers were able to get this guy in the fourth round at pick number 107. In fact, the 49ers were able to get a whole heck of a lot of athletic guys in this NFL draft. Here's a composite of all the relative athletic scores of this 49ers 8-player 2026 draft class, and they're already adding undrafted free agents. I'm going to get to a lot of those guys in a little bit. We may even do a dedicated video, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We can delve deep into the undrafted free agents. But here, I want to take a look at the general larger themes of the entire 49ers draft class before we start to delve into some of the individual nitty-gritty of all these players. And in general, you could see there's a whole heck of a lot of green here, which is good in a relative athletic score. I've covered the 49ers for 10 years. That is the entirety of the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch tenure. The 49ers have never had a draft class this athletic. And it's really funny because they were taking a lot of heat on social media because they wasn't following a consensus or something like that. I was really happy that both John Lynch today and Josh Williams, who's up in the 49ers front office, addressed that. The 49ers don't follow your mock drafts. The 49ers build consensus in their building. They're not looking at the opinions of amateurs outside of the building to try to develop what draft board is best for them and their coaching staff. And they've consistently churned out one of the best rosters in the NFL. Just last year, despite a mass injury event, they won 13 games. And I think that they're well set up now heading into 2026 to push this even further. Sometimes the facts, maybe always the facts, matter more than the feelings. And San Francisco, despite the uproar online, has consistently built the portfolio of a great roster. Now, speaking of a reconstruction of this football team, we look at the 49ers full scale of draft picks. I've got all 8 of them right now listed up on the screen. We already saw that the relative athletic scores were good across the board, but I want to delve into these a little bit more closely. Grayson Halton at pick number 107. For some reason, he sticks out as a headliner to me for multiple reasons, almost like a pivot point of this NFL draft. Remember a couple things. In 2025, last year, the 49ers had to undergo the start of a major roster renovation. They had aged out following the 2023 Super Bowl run. 2024 was a disaster for the 49ers. They won only 6 games. They were showing plenty of fatigue. They were starting to show some serious age. The run defense was really bad for San Francisco, and obviously there was drama on the offensive side of the ball. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL in week 7 of that football season. Just was not a pretty situation for San Francisco. So what happened is that the 49ers went ahead and they began the defensive renovation last offseason. They said, we are going to spend our first 5 draft picks on defensive players. The defense went from old to the 3rd youngest in the NFL. But that was only step 1. Remember whom the 49ers drafted last offseason in the defensive line room. It was Mykel Williams. It was Alfred Collins. It was CJ West. Those were run-stopping players. The 49ers said, we have to stop the run before we can truly have some fun. Well, now the fun part is here. They got the run stoppers in last year. They saw great progress on that side of the ball. Unfortunately, everybody seemed to get hurt, so that erased some of the progress on the stat sheet, but I think when everybody's back and healthy, the 49ers will be very, very confident with how they can stop the run. That means they've been able to go and really backfill the pass rush with this NFL draft and with free agency. Remember, you can also add Osa Odighizuwa into this haul. He's a veteran defensive tackle. 49ers traded a third-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys to pick up Osa, who had 52 pressures last year. Then the 49ers drafted Romello Height at pick number 70. The 49ers give out a whatever it takes. It's a WIT score, W-I-T, a whatever it takes score to all prospects in the NFL draft to see how relentless they are. Guys who play with their hair on fire. Romello Height out of Texas Tech, the lighter edge rusher, had the highest WIT score of any player that the 49ers scouted this year. So they very, very gladly took him in that third round at pick number 70. But then came Grayson Halton, and that's the guy with the big vertical leap that I showed you. This, I'm sure he scored highly on the WIT score as well, but I cannot get enough out of watching some of the Senior Bowl tape from Grayson Halton. I can't get enough of watching the athletic scores of Grayson Halton because it's a shock to me that he was still available at number 107, given some of the performance metrics that he put up. But just take a look at this. This is from Trevor Sikkema. This is Grayson Halton at the Senior Bowl. And this is a spin move with a dose of serious power. Look at that hand swipe, just knocking the offensive lineman backward. I mean, that is the, John Lynch said it best today. He said, you see the metrics and they blow you away, 36.5-inch vertical leap, but then it translates to his explosion off of the football. I mean, there's so much with this guy, with the 40 time at 4.8 at nearly 300 pounds. Obviously, the vertical leap, the broad jump is good. A lot of times you'll see these metrics and then you'll say, well, is he a football player? I think in the case of Grayson Halton, the answer is unequivocally yes. He finished second in the entire nation amongst defensive tackles this past year in pressure rate from the interior defensive line, 13%. It was very, very high. He also, according to ESPN, scored 9.9%. And this is big right here as we open up the 49ers roster, but 9.9% for Grayson Halton on run-stop win rate. And that is something that ESPN tracks, and Nick Wagner tweeted it today, and I thought that it was a great call-out because later on we heard some of the 49ers executives saying that Grayson Halton they view as a true three-down player, a defensive tackle, not just a pass rusher, but a complete guy at that defensive tackle position. So here you could take a look at San Francisco's 53-man roster projection. I'm going to have to thin this out. I've got 59 guys on the 53-man roster as we speak. All of the rookies are here in green, as you can see. So you've got Black, De'Zhaun Stribling, Carver Willis, Enrique Cruz Jr. on the offensive side of the ball, Romello Height and Grayson Halton on the defensive line, Jadyn Dugger, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, and Ephesians Prysock, the cornerback, the tall corner, the 6'3" corner out of the University of Washington. But just focusing on the D-line room, Osa Odighizuwa is a three-down defensive tackle, and he's a special player and somebody the 49ers were willing to trade for because he's 290 pounds. He's not massive like Alfred Collins and C.J. West, who are both 320-plus pounds, but he has, even though he's not huge, he still is able to stay on the field for rundowns. He's big enough and he's strong enough to hold his ground. They're saying the very same thing about Grayson Halton, who's got that amazing athleticism, record-setting athleticism that we just showed, but in the Osa Odighizuwa mold, he can also anchor against heavier blocking and work against the run, he's been all over the Oklahoma interior defensive line. We're talking about zero technique, one technique, three technique. This is a player who can be really good for a long time. And the 49ers now, I mean, this defensive line looks markedly different. I'm talking markedly different than it did down the stretch of last season when everybody was hurt. We've got a nice photo here of Grayson Halton that I want to get up on the screen. It's second highest 2025 pressure rate, as I said, 13% of any defensive tackle in the class. just behind only Caleb Proctor, who went a few picks ahead of him in this draft. The 49ers defensive line should be unrecognizable compared to the depleted unit that finished last season. Remember 2 off seasons ago, the 49ers embarked on the quest of really emulating what the Rams had done to renovate their defensive line. And we said that this would probably take a couple of drafts. You can't just draft 6, 7 defensive linemen in one sitting. It's probably going to take at least 2 years. Well, last year, as I said, was about Williams, Odigizua, and Alfred Collins. This year, it's been about Romello Height and Grayson Halton. And if you subscribe, so you're ready for my undrafted free agent video, this is a sneak peek to that. The 49ers also added Mikhail Kamara from the University of Indiana, somebody who had 10 sacks as a scrappy, undersized edge rusher just 2 seasons ago. I do not think that it is ever a bad idea to raid the roster of one of the most dominant college football teams of all time. That, of course, is the Indiana Hoosiers, who went 16-0. The 49ers now have 4 Indiana players on their roster. 4. Curtis Rourke, the quarterback, added last year. CJ West, the defensive tackle, added last year. And then right here, Mikhail Kamara, the defensive end, added in undrafted free agency. And, of course, for San Francisco, the running back, Kalen Black, who might be Christian McCaffrey's backup, drafted in the 3rd round of this 2026 draft. Now, speaking of grit, speaking of strength, one thing that I talked about on the San Francisco Standard to lead my article, which is going to be dropping tomorrow morning on this draft class, look at how they set the tone on Friday. The top 2 picks for San Francisco, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss, De'Zhaun Stribling, and then Romello Height, they're both sons of ex-Marines. And when you do the research on both of these players, that comes up a lot. Like, people are talking about how disciplined both of these guys are thanks to their dads, who instilled in them that Marine-like focus, right? So the 49ers immediately went to players who obviously score well athletically. That's been something that has been a theme across this entire 2026 draft class, but also have their heads on right to deal with the rigors of adversity that come with NFL play. The next draft pick, number 3, who also went on that first day for the 49ers, is Kalen Black, the running back out of the University of Indiana. And the 49ers now, as I said, have 4 Indiana players on this roster. That's never a bad idea. It was one of the most dominant college football teams of all time, the Indiana Hoosiers were last year. But think about Kalen Black and his journey. Kalen Black was at James Madison University, a small school where his coach was Curt Cignetti. If you're not familiar with Curt Cignetti, he is definitely the most successful coach at this very moment in college football. But he's also one of the toughest coaches, I think, in college football. The guy means absolute business at all times. If you don't recognize the name Curt Cignetti, you probably will recognize the face. I can go ahead and put it up on the screen right now. I'm just trying to find a picture of this guy on Google, and I think that we have found it. Yes, we have indeed found it. So here is a look at Curt Cignetti. Get this up on the screen for everybody. This is the coach. You probably know the face, right? You probably have recognized this from the 16-0 national champion Indiana Hoosiers. Well, Kalen Black, the 49ers running back, followed Curt Cignetti from James Madison. That's where Cignetti had the job before Indiana, to Indiana. And, you know, this to me is significant from 2 angles. One, Curt Cignetti wanted Kalen Black to come with him from James Madison to Indiana. However the NIL money works, however the offers work, Curt Cignetti made the switch to the bigger school, and he brought Kalen Black with him. 2, Kalen Black wanted to follow his coach, Curt Cignetti, to a new program. And I'm sure this guy not easy to play for. as far as you've got to be disciplined to play under Curt Cignetti. Because when I watched Indiana football over the course of the past 2 years, that program was an absolute machine. Well, John Lynch said that everyone in that Indiana building, from the strength coach to the offensive coordinator to, I'm sure, Cignetti himself, absolutely glowed about Kalen Black, that it was one of their favorite players. He led the Indiana Hoosiers in touchdowns this past year. So anyway, that's how I kind of set the table for this 2026 draft class. The first day of picks, because the 49ers traded out of Thursday, so the first day of picks Friday, the 49ers got two sons of ex-Marines and somebody who followed Curt Cignetti from James Madison University to Indiana. All three of them were really, really good athletes. They all measured well on the relative athletic score, something that is a binding kind of truth about this entire 49ers draft class. But they brought that discipline to the table, which personality-wise is something that the 49ers look for in their players and something that they're going to need if they're going to successfully pass the torch from, the very accomplished yet aging core of their roster to the future. You've got to draft well, and you've got to bring in new foundational pillars. They obviously still have some time before a formal handoff will happen, but I think that we already saw a lot of a defensive renovation begin last year, and an offensive renovation probably already beginning now, but it's going to hit in earnest next offseason. This right here is from NFL Next Gen Stats, a measure of the most athletic draft classes in the NFL. Mike is feeding me some good graphics and information as we're kind of operating in real time to break down this 49ers draft class over the course of about an hour today. And this, I think, really does corroborate my point. A look at athleticism across draft classes, and here you go. The average of the first 7 picks of all these draft classes, the 49ers ended up having 8. So I don't think this includes the 49ers offensive tackle at the very back end of this draft class. I'm going to talk about him as well, but he might be the most athletic offensive tackle of this entire crop this year. The 49ers, this is averaging the first 7 picks. The 49ers come in tied for number 3. The Raiders at 80, the 49ers at 80, and the New Orleans Saints at 80. The Bears, a really athletic draft class, and the Buffalo Bills ahead of both of those teams. Anything above 90, according to this NFL Next Gen Stats metric, is elite. That is Jordan Tyson, the receiver out of ASU who went to the New Orleans Saints. But anyway, why don't I just use that as a segue to get to this guy, another NFL Next Gen Stats graphic. This is Enrique Cruz. This was the 49ers' final draft pick of the day. He was the fastest offensive lineman at the NFL Combine this year. So this goes really thematically with how athletic this 49ers draft class was. Cruz, 20.69 miles per hour for an offensive tackle that is weighing in at about 313 pounds is really impressive. He also had a 35-inch vertical leap, which is also very impressive. I mean, at the top of this, we talked about Grayson Halton at 36.5-inch vertical leap. I don't know how he did that at 293 pounds, but 35-inch vertical leap at 313 pounds, maybe that's just as impressive for Enrique Cruz. I've been wondering, and I got my answer from John Lynch about, and from some of the other 49ers personnel guys, been wondering where a player with this spider chart profile, and this is Enrique Cruz, is going to fit on the 49ers offensive line. Do they think that he's an offensive tackle? Because that's what he played in that final season at Kansas, same school as Dominic Pooney. Or are they going to think of him as an offensive guard at this NFL level? And the reason why you wonder is because you look at some of the metrics on the right side here. Height, weight, arm length, all below average. Typically, the 49ers have wanted their offensive tackles to have above average arm length. They want the arms over 34 inches long. I don't think that you quite have that from Enrique Cruz. But then you have the left side of this spider chart, which is the absolutely impressive, explosive profile. And I think that the 49ers have seen that, And they believe that it outweighs some of the question marks as far as length go on the right side. And they're going to treat Enrique Cruz as a developmental tackle. They picked 2 offensive linemen in this NFL draft class. The first came around before Enrique Cruz, and he's going to be working as a guard. His name is Carver Willis. Carver Willis has the worst relative athletic score of this entire 49ers bunch. It is the one that is the outlier on this sheet right here. Let's find Carver Willis. You could find where there's more yellow, and even a little bit of red versus all the other relative athletic scores. It's this one right here that I'm circling with my cursor. But even Carver Willis's relative athletic score still qualifies as good. 7.93. I mean, that's a really, really solid mark. That is when he measures up against other guards. He played tackle at the University of Washington, but is going to be a guard for the 49ers. And San Francisco confirmed that today. In fact, we're going to go through some of the John Lynch videos from the 49ers press conference in a little bit, but it had been, I thought fairly obvious that the 49ers, when I saw that his arm length was under 33 inches, when I saw that he was only 303 pounds, I thought that even though Carver Willis had not played any interior line in college, I thought that the 49ers were looking at him for an interior line spot. Now, let's go to San Francisco's roster, because this is where things get interesting, and I think the fans actually might be really happy about this one little nugget. We've got Carver Willis behind Robert Jones as somebody who's going to compete for left guard. The 49ers have talked openly about left guard being a full-on competition. That job does not belong to the free agent acquisition Robert Jones. It obviously does not belong to Connor Colby, who had it for a few games last year as a rookie. And it doesn't yet belong to Carver Willis, whom the 49ers drafted today in the 4th round. Whoever wins that competition obviously will shore up a position of need for the 49ers. But if it's Carver Willis who emerges from that competition, we also should have a serious conversation about him potentially taking over for Jake Brendel, the 49ers center, as soon as 2027. Everybody's been so focused on the Jake Brendel, on the Trent Williams saga, and he's now re-signed for 2 more years. So Trent Williams is going to stick around for the 49ers through 2027. But everybody's been so focused and obsessed with what are the 49ers going to do at left tackle in the future that they've forgotten about the fact that Jake Brendel is only under contract through 2026, and he's going to be 34 years old this year. The 49ers need to figure out center for the future. I think that Carver Willis at 303 pounds, which is not all that big, he's going to have to add weight if he's going to be a left guard, pulling, running some power. We know the 49ers are running more and more of that. I think his weight is more actually amenable to the center position. It wouldn't shock me if Carver Willis, even if he doesn't win left guard, becomes an understudy for Jake Brendel. Now, Brett Toth can also play center, but the 49ers seem to be increasingly talking of his left guard skill set. So he can get in there, the free agent edition, and compete with Robert Jones and Carver Willis and Connor Colby and Nick Zakelj. But I don't want people to lose sight of the potential downstream possibility that Carver Willis, whom the 49ers drafted today, could play a left guard position for this football team. All right, where do we go next? I know that we've got a lot here in the 2026 NFL Draft Deepest Reaction. I have to see my full list of guys and go from there. We've talked about Carver Willis. We have talked about both 49ers offensive linemen. We've talked about Curt Cignetti. We're going through some of the 49ers roster. We could talk now about Jadyn Dugger. This is from Jadyn Dugger's side. This is his reaction to being drafted by the 49ers. Now, this is a fascinating pick, but this was a beautiful moment. Let's watch in to hear Jadyn Dugger receive the call from San Francisco.
I'm doing good. How are you?
100 pick in the 2006 NFL Draft.
Yes, sir. I'm ready to be there.
60th overall selection.
Yes, sir.
As well. I've heard that many times.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Jacksonville Jaguars. Guys, this has been an
Who is it? 49ers.
What a special moment for Jadyn Dugger. And this, I think, is one of the more unique athletic profiles that we have ever seen. Consider this. He started at Georgetown as a safety. So he's a natural safety, defensive back, tall safety, 6'4" for Georgetown. Then he transferred to Louisiana Lafayette, the Ragin' Cajuns. It's where Elijah Mitchell went to school. And when he got there, they put him at outside linebacker, which is a very, very different position than inside linebacker. He even did a little bit of edge rushing. In a 3-4 outside linebacker, you are going after the quarterback as essentially as a defensive lineman. So, you know, with an athletic profile and the size and the speed and the arm length, he's got 35-inch arms. Jadyn Dugger fit into that profile very well. This past season, they moved him yet again. So now, this is now his third position switch. They moved him to Fred Warner's position. They moved him to inside linebacker. All right, so here we have the relative athletic score comparison between 49ers fifth-round pick Jadyn Dugger out of Louisiana and Fred Warner, a 2018 product out of BYU. There are real similarities, as you can see. Dugger a little bit taller than Warner, who was listed as 6'3". I wonder if Warner grew since the time of his drafting into the NFL, because I believe he looks like he's 6'4" now. Maybe he's only 6'3". Maybe I'm wrong, but Warner is tall for the linebacker position. So is Jadyn Dugger. Dugger is a little bit heavier, but he also has more height. So I think that Warner has a little bit more bulk in his frame. Warner a little bit stronger, 21 bench press reps versus 17 for Dugger. The 40s are about even. They're both 4'6". The 20-yard splits are even, 2.65. Warner a little bit faster with the 10-yard split, 1.55 versus 1.6. Warner has a better vertical leap by 4 inches, but they're both solid. The better broad jump, though, belongs to Jadyn Dugger. The short shuttle's about even. The 3-cone drill, I would give the edge to Fred Warner. Basically, though, you see a lot of similarities between these two. Go back now to the positional history of Fred Warner. He played a DB-like position in college at BYU. And Jadyn Dugger played literal DB position at Georgetown. And then he moved to the edge rusher spot, to the outside linebacker spot, and then he moved to inside linebacker. The 49ers believe that he is a stack inside linebacker, just like Fred Warner. This is the type of pick that you like to make on day 3 because there is clear, immense athletic upside. Does that guarantee that Jadyn Dugger is going to be a really good player? No, of course it doesn't. This is the NFL draft. We're realistic here. We're objective here. We talk about the fact that these are all lottery tickets. The chances of success for anybody, even first rounders, are probably less than 50% in the NFL. But if you're already going to be rolling the dice on day 3, if the probability is already going to be low, well, then you might as well roll the dice on something that has very, very high upside. And I think that when you compare the Jadyn Dugger profile to the Fred Warner profile, you can see exactly what I am talking about. When we look at the 49ers linebacker room, over the course of this draft, they traded away D. Winters. He is now with the Dallas Cowboys. So Nick Martin, I think, naturally slides up to that strong side linebacker spot, although he's going to have to earn that. By no means am I freely giving him that job. Tatum Bethune, Garrett Wallow, Luke Gifford, a special teams guy still on the team. Right now, I've got Jadyn Dugger as a rover. And I don't know exactly where to slot him into this depth chart. The 49ers say, okay, we want him as a stack linebacker, which I think they said that they believe he's got Mike linebacker qualities, that he can play in that middle linebacker spot like Fred Warner. Do we look at him as somebody who obviously needs to bulk up a little bit? You saw his arms are a little skinny. I think that if he added 5 pounds of muscle, it would really help, especially if he's meeting ball carriers as a middle linebacker. But do we think that this is somebody who can eventually succeed Fred Warner? Like in an ideal world? Do we think that Raheem Morris is going to look at things maybe a little bit more imaginatively and actually have Jadyn Dugger rush the quarterback every once in a while with his big, long 6'4" frame and those 35-inch arms? Do we think that maybe he flexes as a little bit of a hybrid safety at some point for the 49ers? I don't know. All I can tell you is that I'm very, very intrigued by a physical skill set that you do not see very often, and a positional history that you do not see very often. So that is Jadyn Dugger. I thought that was a really cool video that we saw of Jadyn Dugger celebrating the call from the 49ers. All right, let's go back to the list here. We've gone through De'Zhaun Stribling. Now, I mean, this was yesterday. I can go through Stribling a little bit more right now. One of the 49ers 16 gold helmets. So they gave out 16 gold helmets. Those go to the guys that check off every single box in a draft class. The 49ers gave out more gold helmets, actually. I think some people might find this funny. In this draft class versus at any other draft class that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and this 49ers staff of the past 10 years has evaluated. And one guy that rose up the 49ers boards was the receiver De'Zhaun Stribling. I mentioned his dad's a Marine. He's from Hawaii. He actually flew overnight. He took the red eye from Hawaii to San Francisco. 49ers shouted out to Jesse Seumalo, who's actually Isaac Seumalo, the longtime guard's sister. She runs a lot of the travel logistics in the 49ers front office, and John Lynch, I believe, today at the press conference today, shouted out to her. She made sure to get the first round, or the number 33 overall pick, the first pick, De'Zhaun Stribling, on the right plane. He was able to fly, probably United. I hope they gave him a nice Polaris seat, but he was able to make it to the Bay Area by the morning, had the press conference today. You can see why the 49ers gave him a gold helmet, because he's just really, really on top of the details. He presents himself really well. But more than anything, I think that the run blocking is what grew on the 49ers over the course of the entire draft scouting process. The guy's extremely fast. If you go watch the De'Zhaun Stribling highlights, which I'm not allowed to play because that would be a copyright issue on the video, but if you go watch the highlights, there is a play that I think truly stands out. It's against the University of Georgia, and you know Georgia's got some dudes, right? It's against Georgia. Stribling is playing outside receiver. There's a throw underneath the Stribling. He's being covered by a corner who went into the NFL Combine, who's much lighter than him, probably about 20 pounds lighter than him. Stribling catches the ball and just runs away from that corner. I looked up that corner's 40 time at the Combine. It was 4.38. So you got Stribling, who's a physical, strong receiver, running away from much lighter corners who ended up running 4.38 at the NFL Combine. All of a sudden, you could see why De'Zhaun Stribling rose the way that he did up the draft charts. You have the athleticism, which was really good. We've shown the relative athletic score. You have the I think it's 4.36 speed at the NFL Combine. You have the strength. Kyle Shanahan first noticed this guy because of his speed and because of his ball skills. He dropped only one pass at Ole Miss last year, but then he grew really enamored with him because of his blocking ability. And Kyle Shanahan thinks that this is the best blocking wide receiver in the entire 2026 draft class. And that, I think, is really, really saying something. We've got another cool video. I like playing a lot of these. Oops, I need to stop playing it right now. This is Enrique Cruz and the draft call with the 49ers. Why don't we get this up on the screen? This is the ultra-athletic offensive lineman whom San Francisco picked with their final selection today in that 5th round. They look from the 49ers angle at the call to Enrique Cruz.
Enrique, John Lynch from the Niners, man. You ready to do this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm so ready.
All right. I love it, man. We're fired up to have you, man. And that trip from Chris Furster was worthwhile, huh?
Yes, sir. It was amazing, man. I can't wait.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, here's our head coach, Kyle Shanahan. All right? Congratulations.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What's up, Enrique? Congrats, dude.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Who are you with right now? Your family?
Yeah, I'm with my whole family right now. Everybody.
Where are you guys at?
We're back home in Chicago right now. I got a whole party, like 100 people, all hyped.
Oh, there you go, dude. Well, it's a lot warmer out here, man.
Oh, yes, sir. I can't wait to go out there and get to work.
Awesome, dude. Well, hey, enjoy that group. Hey, Chris wants to talk to your O-line coach, man. Here he is.
Yes, sir.
Enrique, what's up, man?
What's up, Coach? How you doing?
You fired up?
Oh, man, I can't wait. I can't wait to go over there.
Listen, we're going to come get you, man. I promise you we're going to come get you, okay?
Yes, sir.
No,
Yes, sir. Let's do this.
I had to give up a couple toes to get you, man, but you're here, brother, okay?
I promise you won't regret it. I swear.
I know we
I'll
will,
go to
bro. We're
work.
going to get it done, okay, man? But listen, man, enjoy your night, and I can't wait to see you out here, okay, man?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
See you, brother. Bye-bye.
So that's cool. You don't usually see Chris Furster get involved with those draft calls, but this was Chris Furster's guy. That's the 49ers O-line coach. He said he had to give up a couple toes to get Enrique Cruz with San Francisco. I hope that Chris Furster didn't have to give up that much. Just looking at this, just looking at the fact that Enrique Cruz was literally the fastest offensive lineman in this draft class. 49ers have made hay with fast offensive tackles before in this Kyle Shanahan scheme. Joe Staley was one of the fastest offensive tackles of all time. They inherited him from previous regimes, but he played a really good left tackle for the 49ers all the way up until his retirement after the 2019 season. Trent Williams is obviously one of the most athletic offensive tackles of all time. Part of the reason why the 49ers have such a high standard of athleticism at that position. Now, Enrique Cruz, well, it's somebody that needs a lot of development. Has only really truly started one full impressive season in college. Benched at Syracuse before he moved over to Kansas and played the really solid 2025 season. So he's going to have some more seasoning under his belt. He's going to have to get some good coaching from Chris Furster and company. But anybody complaining that the 49ers don't invest in their offensive line, there has been major investment in San Francisco's offensive line. Let's go to the depth chart itself. Trent Williams just got $37 million more in fully guaranteed money. That's an investment. The 49ers signed 3 veteran offensive linemen for at least depth purposes over the course of free agency. That's an investment. Vidarian Lowe, Robert Jones, Brett Toth, maybe one guy for each position. Tackle for Lowe, Jones a guard, and Toth might be a center of the future for the 49ers. Dominic Pooney was a third-round pick just a couple seasons ago for San Francisco. And now 2 rookies. Carver Willis, who's going to compete at left guard, and Enrique Cruz, who's a developmental tackle for the 49ers. But Mike brought this up, and this is something that is definitely worth talking about. Teams have started to use 6th offensive linemen with more regularity, kind of as tight ends, but to improve the numbers blocking-wise as run games have proliferated around football. I think there's a reversion now again to running football in the NFL. And as teams have started to use extra offensive linemen, of course, if you're going to have one guy who is further outside, further toward the perimeter, you're going to want him to be a good athlete. Well, you now have somebody who is quite literally the fastest offensive lineman in the 2026 draft class on your football team. Maybe the 49ers can get Enrique Cruz involved as a 6th offensive lineman. You see the tight end explosion. The Rams are running 3 tight end sets. A lot of teams are trying to run 3 tight end sets. They're creating matchup nightmares. I think one of the reasons why the 49ers are going for another tall linebacker in Dugger, like Fred Warner, is because you're going to have to combat the tight ends and that proliferation of that position as a defense. So anyway, maybe Enrique Cruz gets some time for the 49ers, not necessarily as a starting offensive tackle, but as a player who can flex out, force his way out onto the field, and become an extra blocker for San Francisco. The Dolphins have used Daniel Brunskill, a former 49ers offensive lineman who also played tackle for San Francisco back in 2019, as a tight end, and it created opportunities in the run game. That was the coach, Mike McDaniel, who obviously has coached for the 49ers. Now he's in LA as Jim Harbaugh's offensive coordinator. Enrique Cruz is a better athlete than Daniel Brunskill, so we can't put that type of usage beyond the 49ers. There's one more player who we haven't talked all too much about. We've talked about Stribling. We've talked about Romello Height. We've talked about Kalen Black. We started the show on Grayson Halton. Then there's Carver Willis, who we've talked about, the offensive lineman, and Ephesians Pricesock. Now, Willis and Ephesians Pricesock is what we're going to talk about next. But Jadyn Dugger and Enrique Cruz rounded out this class, and I know that we just finished talking about a couple of those guys. The Willis-Pricesock combination, the 1-2 punch there at the end of the fourth round, pick number 127 and pick number 139, is fascinating to me. A lot of people aren't going to get this deep into it, but I will on this channel. This is why you should subscribe. Both of those guys went to the University of Washington. So they were teammates with the Huskies last year. That means that both of those guys were coached by one of the 49ers' strongest college connections on the West Coast, and that is Jedd Fisch. He's the coach of the University of Washington. The 49ers have a pipeline there, right? They know the good players coming out of Washington or the good players who played under Jedd Fisch in Arizona before he took the job with the Washington Huskies. It is not an accident that San Francisco was able to net both Carver Willis and Ephesians Pricesock back-to-back picks out of the University of Washington. Not surprising they had the confidence to do that given their relationship with Jedd Fisch at the University of Washington. And a guy like Ephesians Pricesock, well, I think that R.J. Gillen said it the best today. He's one of the 49ers personnel directors. This is a player who is very tall, but he runs like a much smaller player, which is a compliment. He's over 6'3", so he's Richard Sherman's height, but he moves at a 4.4 speed. Sherman ran like, I think, a 4.6 coming out of Stanford at 6'3", and he's a future Hall of Famer. Somebody like Ephesians Pricesock is going to have to continue developing his tackling ability. By no means is he a finished product. I think that the interception count was a little too low for the 49ers' liking in college. 2 interceptions. They're going to want him to play on the football more to emerge as a full-time guy in the NFL. But whenever you can combine 6'3" height with 4.4 speed, you have a player who is a rare breed. And immediately you have a deeper 49ers cornerback room, and you have competition behind the starters in De'Amon Lenoir and Renardo Green. Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs, both free agent additions. I think Hobbs is going to be more of a big nickel on the inside in an ideal world for the 49ers. And of course, Ephesians Pricesock on the outside, and Jack Jones is an outside corner, but he's had off-field issues. It's a 1-year deal. I don't know if Jack Jones is somebody that the 49ers signed to fully count on. And I don't know if he's a roster lock for San Francisco. He's been very good in zone coverage, not very good in man coverage. He really struggled there for Miami last year. So the competition will rage at that cornerback position. As you can see here, I've got 59 players on the 53-man roster. That's something that I have to amend. That's something that I have to change because only 53 are going to fit. I've got, and I have to double check the math on this, but I've got 88 on the 49ers 90-man roster. They're thinking about what to do with Brandon Ayuk coming up, but they're probably going to keep him, and that's going to occupy a 90-man roster spot for San Francisco. They can keep Brandon Ayuk without issue all the way up through training camp, all the way up until that August 31st, September 1st date. And if he doesn't show up, they can keep him beyond that, and they could put him on a left squad list, and they can open up another roster spot. But right now, Ayuk has taken up one of the 49ers' 90 roster spots over the offseason. So how are we going to work with this roster? How are we going to thin this out to a 53-man? I mean, one of these corners, you look at the cornerback position, you've got 4, 5 corners, 6, 7 corners are not going to make the team. Somebody like Jack Jones might get the axe. Nate Hobbs might get the axe. Who knows? I think that Lenoir, Green, and Upton Stout are safe. I think Ephesians Pricesock, unless he's extremely disappointing, should make this team. But I don't know if 7 cornerbacks can fit, especially if I have to find a way to cut about 6 players, and the 49ers only have 3 safeties on this roster. Or maybe you only take 3 safeties, and then you have an extra number for the cornerback position. I don't know. Right now, they've got 7 linebackers, which is not going to happen. Somebody like Wallow may not make the team. Maybe we move Garrett Wallow over into a practice squad role. Maybe Tatum Bethune is a practice squad kind of player for San Francisco. We can move Jadyn Dugger in to his rover position here in the middle. I'll fix all the lines later. Luke Gifford was a Pro Bowl special teamer last year, so he probably will make the team. But I've only lessened this to 58. I've had 10 defensive linemen. Maybe they can get away with somebody like Cam Sample on the practice squad. If that's the case, he's a veteran addition, then that takes another number off. That brings us down to 57 with 9 defensive linemen making the team. Doesn't really look like there's any room for Joey Bosa. That's why I said wait until the NFL draft happens. I've got 10 offensive linemen making the team. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think if Connor Colby loses a battle, then he's not going to be on this 53-man. Maybe he gets re-signed to the practice squad, kind of like Colton McKivitz back in that 2021 season. And McKivitz was able to fight his way up from that, but I can't project Connor Colby right now to make the 49ers 53-man roster based on who they drafted. So we move Colby over to a practice squad projection. That is the 49ers down to 56 players on the 53-man roster. How about tight end? They've signed an undrafted free agent there in Khalil Dinkins. I have 4 tight ends. I think if the roster is tight, tight end could be a spot where the 49ers only carry 3. If that's the case, go ahead and move Brayden Willis back out here to a practice squad projection and have Kittle, Tonjes, and Farrell as the 49ers 3 tight ends on the 53-man roster. We're down to 55, so we've got to find 2 more guys to cut. The De'Zhaun Stribling addition takes the spot of Jauan Jennings on this football team. I think Stribling is extremely versatile. I talked about that after the 49ers drafted him. But I also believe that, and Kyle Shanahan has essentially confirmed this, that the most logical place for De'Zhaun Stribling to go is the big slot. The 49ers have a small slot, 1-year veteran deal, and Christian Kirk, who can help kind of pave the way for De'Zhaun Stribling as he becomes comfortable in this league. But the big slot that Jauan Jennings operated and, was too big for nickels to cover and was too fast and too fluid for safeties to cover. That is where De'Zhaun Stribling, with his great blocking ability and with his upgrade in speed with a 4.36 40, that is where he can live. If Kirk is playing the slot, the small slot, and if De'Zhaun Stribling is playing the big slot, Jacob Cowing, especially if Jordan Watson takes another step, I mean, maybe you don't take DeMarcus Robinson, but I doubt it. Jacob Cowing is officially on the 49ers roster bubble. So we're going to move Jacob Cowing over here for the time being because they're definitely not going to take 7 receivers. So I think 6 is the number for San Francisco. And that leaves the 49ers with 54 on this roster. Maybe we move Patrick Taylor Jr., the running back, over here and have the 49ers only take 3 running backs on the 53 and another guy in the practice squad. I think that would be acceptable. And boom, all of a sudden, the 49ers would be down to 53 men on the roster, 88 on the 90-man. I've got to do the math to make sure that that all checks out. But that is, an initial kind of cut down for me looking at this roster now following the introduction of this 8-player draft class. Here's what it looks like. Intensely athletic, as you can see here, one of the more athletic draft classes that we've ever seen from the 49ers, one of the most athletic in the league this year. At least in the sea of subjectivity that is NFL draft analysis, the 49ers have relied on some objectivity, have relied on the bedrock of some of this athletic testing that John Lynch talked a lot about today when he spoke. He said that guys like, I opened up with somebody like a Grayson Halton, his play mirrors what his testing says. Like the 36.5-inch vertical leap, the 3rd highest of all time for defensive tackles, shows up in the way that he explodes off the line of scrimmage, shows up in the 13% pressure rate, shows up in the 9.9% run stop win rate. That is a 3-down defensive tackle. The 49ers defensive line is now unrecognizable compared to what it was down the stretch last year with everyone hurt. The offensive line is clearly undergoing a renovation of athleticism with a guard and a tackle added today. They needed another player at receiver. We've talked about this for a long time. I'm going to go ahead and take a victory lap here. A lot of people gave me a hard time when I said the 49ers first pick can very well be a wide receiver. And they said, why? They just signed Mike Evans. They assigned Christian Kirk. And I said, well, because they need wide receivers to fortify this team under contract beyond just 2026. And they need that F position taken care of with a guy who can block. The perimeter blocking was down big time last year. And they need speed to separate. Well, De'Zhaun Stribling does both of those things. And guess what the 49ers did with their first pick in this draft? They used it on a receiver. So on this channel, we were right. They needed another running back. So they went out and they got Kalen Black. Black might immediately be above. He's a better athletic tester than Jordan James. He might immediately be running back 2 for the 49ers coming from that pedigreed Indiana program. Isaac Guerendo might be on his way out. We'll see if he has a way to resurrect himself here, but he didn't get a single carry for the 49ers last year. The D-line renovation between Romello Height and Grayson Halton is something else. And then the flyer that they took on Jadyn Dugger, and I would say a flyer too on Ephesians Price Hawk. These are two high upside athletic players like 6'4" and 6'3" in the back 7 of the secondary. Those are the types of swings that you want to take with a day 3 pick. You're not trying to play a day 3 pick safe. You don't want a backup. You want a starter. You want an impact maker. And the 49ers talked about it. Josh Williams today said, we don't look at mock drafts. We self-scout because our formula, Josh Williams said, talking to the 49ers, has discovered a Fred Warner in the 5th round, Fred Warner in the 3rd round, a George Kittle in the 5th round, a Jawan Jennings in the 7th round, a Brock Purdy in the 7th round. The 49ers formula has proven successful with some of these late round swings. And boy, if they can find a way to land with a Jadyn Dugger or an Ephesians Price Hawk, well, that would be icing on top of the cake for San Francisco. They have done most of the undrafted free agent work. Jalen Stroman, safety, has joined San Francisco, more of a box safety. Michael Kamara from the University of Indiana, good pass rusher, but an undersized pass rusher, has joined the team as well. Khalil Dinkins, tight end out of Penn State, explosive blocker, is aboard. And then 2 receivers, Will Pauling, a smaller slot guy, and Wesley Grimes, the 6'2" wideout, have joined the 49ers. They have extended a few invites to the rookie minicamp that's going to happen not this next weekend, but the one after that. So busy draft. And I'm not here to tell you, oh, this 49ers draft sucks or this 49ers draft is great. I'm not taking a side because it would be disingenuous to take a side. Anybody who's trying to grade a draft class before the guys have actually played a single NFL snap is just trying to sell clicks. You can actually, though, deal in objective facts. You can show the testing. You can listen to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch talk about the vision, and we're going to do that in a later show this week. But you can listen to everything that the 49ers have shared about their research. You can look at the actual tape. You can look at the metrics, which are an objective way to showcase what the player is physically able to do on the field. You can corroborate those things, and then you can gauge where the 49ers actually are following these 8 additions. And that way you can bypass the emotions and the anger and just the irrationality of it all. And we saw a lot of that online, and you could just look at the cold, hard facts. This guy, Bill Walsh, right here, the reason we brought him up so much this weekend is because the 49ers traded 5 times in this NFL draft. Most of them were trades back, 4 trades back, and they traded D. Winters to the Cowboys to pick up another pick in the 5th round. That tied the record for the most trades within a draft since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over 10 seasons ago. They had 5 in 2017. They had 5 in this offseason. The 1986 49ers, 40 years ago, traded 6 times in the NFL draft. San Francisco was unable to trade Brandon Ayuk. That would have been the 6th. They couldn't do it. They're going to keep him on the roster. We didn't expect them to do it over the course of this draft. But anyway, Bill Walsh was, of course, a genius. And he was able to generate value in the NFL draft. I think the 49ers were able to generate some good value with their trades down, more darts to throw up against the wall. And fans probably, especially those of you who are so upset, should take a page out of this book. And it's a fantastic page, actually. It's a fantastic few pages. Once the draft is over, absolutely nobody of consequence cares where a player was selected. It does not matter anymore. So have a look at this list right here one last time. because we're closing the book on this 2026 NFL draft, and we finally get to talk about real football now. These guys went in between the 2nd and the 5th rounds. All right, now none of that matters. Now only the names on the right matter. Moving forward, it doesn't matter that De'Zhaun Stribling went at number 33. It doesn't matter that Enrique Cruz went at number 179 in the 5th round. This is a meritocracy. All of them are going to be working their way up the depth chart and trying to prove themselves with draft capital irrelevant. And that was one of the main lessons of this guy, of Bill Walsh. It doesn't matter once they're in the building. And only the media and only casual fans, only the casuals are going to keep on bringing up draft positioning years down the line. That's why Brock Purdy doesn't get the respect that he deserves, because people keep on bringing up draft positioning, but it doesn't matter anymore. All you can do as a football team is give yourself the best chance of inserting the roster with guys who can succeed in your system. And the best way to do that in a crapshoot, I think, is to find an objective measurement or set of measurements that allow you to kind of sift through things. And I think the 49ers clearly have gone to those relative athletic scores, and they believe they corroborate the film. They've looked at a guy like Grayson Halton with that vertical jump. And for the first time since I started covering this team 10 years ago, the 49ers are good relative athletic scores across the board. An exceptionally athletic draft class for the 49ers spearheads the way into 2026. All right, if you enjoyed my draft coverage, and I hope you did, make sure you hit a subscribe. If you, maybe we have somebody leaving a super chat. Yeah, we've got a couple. I'm going to answer a couple of the super chats. This is for Savannah's Toy Fund. She was the 49ers' first round draft pick this year, since they didn't have an actual one. Really appreciate that from Terry. And now we've got Padres Niners saying I shouldn't be so biased. All right, I'm going to take you on because you gave me $9.99. I appreciate the Padres Niners logos. We always compete, you say, but is it fair to say most of our success comes from free agency and trades? Can you name one Pro Bowler drafted since 2019? The drafting is suspect, and you shouldn't be so biased. Okay, how am I biased? You can't really say how I'm biased. I'm just talking about the roster, and I'm talking about how the 49ers are adding players to the draft. And I think that I'm on the record saying that the 49ers 2023 draft class was not good at all. 2022 outside of Brock Purdy was not good at all. I don't think 2021 was very good. I've gone out and I said that multiple times. So where's the bias? I'm still not detecting it. I think that you're biased by calling me biased. And here, I'm going to put your chat up on the screen one more time. Can I name one Pro Bowler drafted since 2019? Yeah. I can name one of the best quarterbacks in all of football drafted in 2022. It is not surprising that somebody who worships the draft might forget about Brock Purdy, who has been drafted since 2019. He is on this team. Another burgeoning star for the 49ers drafted since that 2019 season, Upton Stout, is on this team. Here's the truth of the 49ers drafting. In 2021, they traded away a whole heck of a lot of capital and first-round picks to go get Trey Lance. That didn't work. Brock Purdy helped them make up for it because he's one of the best in the entire game. But the after effects of that Trey Lance trade decimated the 49ers' first-round picks in 2021, 2022, and 2023. On top of that, they were not good drafting beyond the first round in those years, except for 262 Brock Purdy. But what we have seen since then is a recalibration. And I've covered this very, very objectively. And if you say that I haven't covered it objectively, you're just not smart enough to listen. The recalibration began in 2024, where the 49ers began listening to their R&D department more and really taking a look at objective athletic scores to put them beyond the age of Cam Latu, who did not have a good athletic score in 2023. That was one of the 49ers' worst draft picks of this era. This 2026 draft has been a culmination of the greater consensus that the 49ers have reached within the building. And I think that you could see a definite uptick in how the 49ers have drafted past 2023. Once they started collaborating more in 2024, 2025, and then here in 2026. So the only people who are not objective are the ones who complain all the time. The objectivity lives here with this channel. I appreciate everybody. Thanks for joining the show. It's been a lot of fun. Hit that subscribe button. The most watched 49ers coverage by a mile. We dominated everybody this weekend. So thanks for being part of it. The most watched 49ers coverage is right here, and it's going to stay right here. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you soon. Hope you enjoyed the 2026 draft.